my students. Today we will be looking at desktop computers. Now we've already gone through mainframe computers, we've gone through supercomputers, and we have been quite learned. We've been brought up to speed as to what both are. We learned that supercomputers are those huge computers, like we're talking basketball courts sizes. We learned that they are the fastest computers in the world, hence their name, supercomputers. And we also learned that they're not used to doing regular processing like your desktop computer, for instance. They are of the higher level. They are used to help in pharmaceutical research, weather forecasting, right? CGI in movies. That's what supercomputers are used to do, right? We learned that mainframe computers are the ones that are more along the business side. So they're used for heavy information processing work. So you'll have companies like banks that have a lot of employees and customers using mainframe computers. You'll have security companies, major security companies that have a lot of persons' private information to keep secure using supercomputers. Sorry, mainframe computers. Just checking if you're listening, right? But we're going to move on today to desktop computers. And the desktop computers is the one that I know you are used to. It's the one that I learned about when I was first introduced to computers. It's the one that some of you are even sitting in front of right now, right? As you can see here, it's a computer with a central processing unit as a microprocessor, and it's designed for individual use. It normally sits on a desktop. Now, it's important to know that your desktop computer is not just your computer screen or your keyboard. It's a combination, an amalgamation of all these things. So the desktop computer system includes the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse, the speaker, the printer. All of these things come together to form your desktop computer system, right? And they all normally sit on a desktop, plugged into a power outlet and prepared and ready for you to do work on it. Now, when we're talking about desktop uses and the work that it does, we go into gaming. I mean, how many of us like to play games? The Fortnite, the Need for Speed, the other ones that I won't even pretend to remember so I can call out their names, Grand Theft Auto, right? You guys, I know, like to play games. I know some of us girls too, because I love Need for Speed, zeroed it more than once, right? Business and finance. Your parents, when they go to work, a lot of them interact with desktop computers on a day-to-day basis, right? Schooling, right now you are using the desktop computer to do your schooling, to interact with what I have to say to you, and also to help us to learn and teach together in this environment. Graphic design, all some of those lovely colors you see, this beautiful slide that you're seeing in front with that lovely swirl going on it. I use my desktop computer to create it, right? Accessing the internet, that goes without saying, right? It's basically designed for individual use. So whatever it is you can think of that you'd want to do with your desktop computer that is able to be done with your desktop computer, the desktop computer can do it, right? Let's move on to the advantages though. It's important to know that they're much smaller and smaller than what you might ask, smaller than the ones we've done before. If you notice, we're coming down in size, right? So the supercomputer was here, then the mainframe computer came a little closer, and then the desktop computer is here, right? So we're getting smaller in size as we go across the types of computer, right? So it's much smaller and can easily fit on a desktop, hence the name desktop computer, right? They're relatively cheap. So we looked at the mainframe and we learned that, hey, it still could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the desktop computers are relatively cheap. You can get a desktop computer for less than $100,000, right? The type of desktop computer you would want to get, depending on the use of the desktop computer, would suggest how much you're willing to spend on it, right? But you can get a desktop computer that is functioning for less than $100,000. So it is relatively cheap for the products that you are getting. And better yet, it's easy to maintain, right? As soon as you go ahead and set up your initial application software on your desktop computers, there's pretty much nothing you'll need to do after that rather than turn it on and do your work. Every now and then you can get it to be upgraded, updated, checked for viruses, etc. But it's pretty easy to maintain. A novice can give good enough maintenance to a desktop computer system. But of course, with every good thing, there are disadvantages. And the disadvantages, unlike the earlier types of computers that we spoke about, the supercomputer and the mainframe, the desktop computers have limited processing power and memory, right? You have desktop computers that have memory that go up to 1 terabyte, even 2 terabytes, and that's a lot of memory. But in the scope of memory, like we were looking at, even with supercomputers, there is limited memory, there's limited processing power for the desktop computers, okay? And ultimately, if you misuse a desktop computer, then you will just pour the advantages out, right? So you'll realize that desktop computer facilitates stuff like scamming, right? Robbing people their monies, cyberbullying, right? And the list goes on. So the disadvantage can come because of the misuse of it and not necessarily the desktop computer itself, right? But we are doing technology. So as the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. It's what you put in, you will get out. And if you're putting in something bad, then bad is what is going to come out. So the disadvantages comes out like that. Now here you're seeing an example of a desktop computer. There are a lot of companies that have created desktop computers. IBM, Dell, Hewlett-Packard, Apple, the list goes on. There's Lenovo, Google is now, computers. So there are different types of desktop computers. But the reality of it is, this is generally how it looks. There's a system unit, there are speakers, there's a monitor, there's a keyboard, there's a mouse. Basic additions to get you your desktop computer. So there's a processing unit inside of this, your output display, your output also, and then you have your input. So all the elements of a computer is there and makes it all work together, right? So that's pretty much it, guys. That's your topic on desktop computers. I hope you found it informative. I hope you learned, and I hope you are ready for whatever quiz I have up my sleeve for you. Peace out. This is your busy teacher live.